volume down. Turn volume down. Turn the volume down. Turn volume down. Is your iPad making sounds? We'll begin with the aspiration and engagement bodhicitta, page 1 and 2.
All mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious Buddhahood. All mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious Buddhahood. All mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious Buddhahood. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind.
To the top of page 6.
In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion.
So this weekend's program, and then continuing on to 3 more Sundays, only Sunday afternoons, is focused on Milarepa, and particularly Milarepa's songs. But at the same time, I am going to integrate the practice of Milarepa, meaning the Guru Yoga, of Milarepa into at least this weekend's program. So in a little bit, I'll just say just a little on Milarepa, since I'm sure all of you already know Milarepa. Probably that's why you're here. Then in terms of the meditation practice, the Guru Yoga practice, this text here called the Guru Yoga of Jesun Shepa Dorje. Shepa Dorje is Milarepa's Dharma name, Shepa Dorje. And then the Guru Yoga, Guru is the teacher, the mentor, the Lama. And yoga is to unite with, to be united with, is to be united with the Guru, united in the sense of one's devotion, at least at this point, it is one's devotion mind that will connect us to the awakened mind of the Guru. Of course, the awakened mind is present within us, but right now it's obscured, it's covered, and therefore we have no access. We have no experiential access to this awakened mind. So until we have access to it, we will continue to be in what we call the state of samsara, the state of confusion. So the goal or the purpose of Guru Yogas, so there are many, many types of Guru Yogas, primarily based on who is the main figure to represent this principle of the Guru, the principle of guidance. In this case, it's Milarepa as the central figure to represent that principle. So ordinarily, or often, I don't know ordinary or not, but often Guru Yoga practices or these types of sadhana practices are done with an emphasis on kind of recitation. And then there is also, when done publicly, it is done as a performance. By that, I'm not kind of criticizing that. I think there is an aspect to these practices where the public performance of it creates a particular environment, creates a particular condition that can evoke the devotion mind, that can uplift the experience of all those participating. So there is a time and a place for that kind of, that way of connecting to these sadhana practices. And then when the sadhana practices are done on a daily basis at home, then you could say that the emphasis is different. It emphasizes more perhaps your understanding and your kind of meditating on it rather than the more performance aspect of it. Yeah. Come on in, don't worry. Here, what I would like to do for today and the final part tomorrow morning is to offer you another way of experiencing this sadhana, another way of experiencing this practice that may be helpful in your own kind of ongoing relationship with such practices. Such practices are not easy by any means. But like any practice, like any discipline, that any art, or any sports that we are learning, it takes time. Often we kind of go to one thing and then we think, it has to be immediately accessible. Then if it's not, it's like it's not meaningful to me. I think we're not giving ourselves a chance and the time to kind of say, well, like anything else that you learn, especially anything that is worth learning, will take time. Now, it is also not the case that, anything that takes a long time is worth learning. So sure, I'm aware of that. I have that experience too. But I think until we give a little bit time to it, and look at all the different ways in which one could connect with something like this, we really don't know quite what we're throwing out yet, if we decide to throw out. So, so I'm going to use this Guru Yoga practice text as, in a way, framing the structure for this weekend. So you're not going to experience this practice the way it's done. Like, okay, we'll go from cover to cover, finish all of that, and then we'll start talking. It's just the usual way of doing these practices. Chant, 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 or read, 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 depending on which language you choose. And then in conclusion, okay, we're done with that. Now let's go to the teachings, right? But instead, I'm going to use this as a structure to frame this weekend's experience, to frame this weekend's teachings. So if you turn to the Guru Yoga on page 1, so it's the Guru Yoga of Jisen Shepa Dorje, as I said. And I have to apologize to the folks that are joining us through the YouTube livecast. We don't have this text ready to share with you quite yet. It still needs some tweaking, so I don't want to release that PDF out there circulating yet. But if you really would like to continue this, do email us at info@udharmanc.com, our main email for Urban Dharma, North Carolina. And then when we're ready to release this text, we will make it available. But don't be too concerned at this point, because as you'll see, the way that I'm going to use this sadhana, it's not literally necessary every point for you to have it. But the Songs of Milarepa collection, that's available. We will Jessica, who is facilitating this live cast, will try to get that file to you if you're there watching and you need it. So basically, I'll hold up. There are 2 texts. But now I'm talking about this one here, the sadhana practice. So Jisen Shepa Dorje is referring to Milarepa. So Milarepa lived in Tibet in the 12th century, probably one of the most famous figures in all of Tibetan Buddhism. The Kagyu tradition claims a special connection to Milarepa, but Milarepa is known and loved by all across the Tibetan Buddhist traditions. The Kagyu claims a special connection to him because one of his key disciples, Gampopa, who was a monk, became, you could say, the fountainhead of all the traditions that later on trace themselves and identify themselves as Kagyu. Gampopa was the fountainhead of this whole, all the different Kagyus, with the exception of Shangpa Kagyu, that comes from a different transmission. So much so that the majority who identify with the label Kagyu, sometimes it's called Dakpo Kagyu. Dakpo is where Gampopa came from. So Dakpo Kagyu. So among the Dakpo Kagyu today, in terms of numbers, the largest group is the Karma Kagyu, followed by the Dukpa Kagyu, and then followed by Drigung Kagyu, and then significantly smaller in numbers, the Tatlung Kagyu. Then the other Kagyus exist in one form or another. Either their teachings and practices were absorbed into the other Kagyus, and sometimes even beyond Kagyu, among some Nyingma transmissions, lineages. Then there might be a stray monastery here and there that claim that kind of see their connections going back to Barom Kagyu or one of these other Kagyu. But the four kind of that exist today as independent institutions, these four. Milarepa himself, of course, was never a monk. In that, he never took the formal steps of becoming a monk himself. Neither could we quite call Milarepa a layperson, because he wasn't a householder. His teacher was a householder, Marpa, and I don't think we could call Marpa a layperson either. In fact, these terms that we use in the West, the lay people, it comes out of obviously a Christian, right? Context, or at least lots of baggage there. So when you call the laity, then the opposite of the laity in English would be what?
Clergy.
Clergy, right? Clergy and laity are like the two. Kind of in a congregation, you have the clergy, you have the laity, right? And then among clergy has a very specific function. What's the function of clergy? Linda, what's the function of clergy?
Lead the congregation.
To lead the congregation, to provide pastoral care, right? So there are some resemblances within the Buddhist tradition. And the laity often means people who play kind of second, kind of supporting role. So in that sense, in the Buddhist context, it's you don't have exactly kind of matching groups. We tend to think monks and nuns are clergy, but they're not clergy in the way that the West understands clergy. Majority of monks and nuns do not play pastoral roles. Majority of monks and nuns do not even lead, the lay people. Majority of monks and nuns do not teach either. Now, only a very small, relatively speaking, subset of monks and nuns assume roles of leading, worship, so to say, provide pastoral care, gives religious instructions. The role of monks and nuns in Buddhism primarily is a personal lifestyle choice of lifestyle. So Milarepa adopted a different choice of lifestyle. He was neither a householder nor a member of the monastic order. Because in his time, and for him, neither of those two defined kind of situations or institutions, you could say, fitted with his aspirations. So he saw ordinary householder's life to be too challenging for him to truly get to the place that he wanted to get to. In fact, his sister, when she saw how terribly difficult he was practicing in the mountains, that when he came back to see her, she could barely recognize, this kind of living skeleton that she saw in front of her. She cried and she said, I don't understand why you have to do it, this way. And in fact, she said, I look around and I see Dharma practitioners, and I see that they don't go to the lengths that you go to. Yeah? And then she even said, look at your own teacher. Why can't you be a Dharma practitioner like him, right? And his sister probably would want their brother to be more like Marpa, because Marpa was a wealthy landowner. He built up his wealth. He owned land. He rented out his land. Other people pay taxes to him or rent to him to work on his land. And he had a, comfortable, family and all of that, right? Of course, Marpa spent a lot of his wealth to go to India 3 times to bring back the teachings. So Milarepa's sister said, why can't you at least be like your teacher? His response is that my teacher is like a lion, and I am just like a fox. When a lion, and so it's sort of believed that lions can jump from one mountain to the next mountain, whereas foxes, if they try to do that, they'll fall to their deaths. And so he said, I can't do what he can. So he went into the mountains and lived as a hermit, as an ascetic, in many ways, way more challenging than that of a monk. At the very least, dressed as a monk, when you move around in a society that is very familiar with supporting religious people, immediately you can see, oh, this is a monk, right? And you provide support. Milarepa is basically without any credentials, right? And so you look and you say, is this a religious person? Madman? Or a bum too lazy to be productive? And from Milarepa's life story, people treated him all of the above. Yeah. And so sometimes he got what he needed, plenty of other times he did not. But that was what he needed for himself in order to let the Dharma radically transform him. So he underwent, all kinds of hardships. So stories of how Marpa had to devise skillful ways for purifying Milarepa's obscurations in a very short time, because Milarepa was so driven to do something radical to change the way in which his mind, his heart was moving, which was really consumed by simultaneous hate, resentment, and guilt. He grew up in a situation where his relatives that were supposed to take care of his widowed mother and him and her was taken advantage of by these relatives and made into basically slaves of the uncle and aunt. And so the mother, understandably, kept reminding Milarepa that when you are able to, when you're old enough, you have to take back everything that they robbed from us. And so in order to fulfill that goal, in order to right that wrong, so to say, at least the way that he thought and his mother thought should be done, he resorted to learning basically what we call the dark arts, sorcery, and using the powers of his sorcery, because he was so dedicated, he was able to master sorcery, and he used that to basically torture and murder those whom he considered his enemies. But there was enough good karma that it didn't take too many of these incidents that previous, roots of merit ripened, and then he was consumed with guilt. That guilt had a positive aspect in that it says it drove him to the mountains. It drove him to go find a different way. But even guilt that drove him in the right direction, in the end, also needs to be purified. The way guilt is purified is not to become heartless or to think that negative actions are justified. The way guilt is purified is through Dharma. And so he went searching for teachers, not very successful in the beginning, was attracted to things that he did not have a connection with. He said that he connected with a teacher that taught Dzogchen, but he did not have the karma for that kind of practice. Not that that kind of practice didn't work, but he did not have the karma to have those teachings make an impact on him. And so he went looking finally and was directed to Marpa. So Marpa had to devise all sorts of methods to help Milarepa purify and remove the obstacles that stood in the way of Milarepa really in a swift way being able to place himself from a place of darkness into a place of light. And so Milarepa said, because my karma was so heavy, my negative karma was so heavy, all of this was necessary. So Marpa at the beginning, basically not tested, he knew that Milarepa was going to be his main successor. But that didn't mean that Marpa said, oh, okay, everything's done now. It's faded. It's not. Right? So this is kind of an interesting tension between sort of the stories saying, the tradition saying that he knew that this was the successor. But maybe you could say that's like on the ultimate level. But on the conventional level, if it did not put Milarepa under the ways of changing Milarepa's mind, then we would not have Milarepa today. And primarily then the thing that was trained is to train Milarepa's devotion. And so Marpa from day one was unreasonable. From day one was unreasonable. By all, reasonable accounts, Marpa was unreasonable with Milarepa. No question about that if you read it, read the biography. Marpa basically was harsh with Milarepa. To the point that Marpa's wife, was having fights with Marpa over Marpa's treatment of Milarepa. And Marpa's wife tried many things to make it easier for Milarepa. And each time, she got to see how her supposed kindness to Milarepa was actually not helping Milarepa. Marpa would say, you bring me this, bring me a gift that is worthy of the teachings that you want. And Milarepa had nothing. Didn't matter. So Marpa's wife thought, well, if you are going to be so unreasonable with Milarepa, I'm going to give Milarepa stuff so that he can give to you what you want. So then when Milarepa came and presented those gifts to Marpa, Marpa said, ha, I bought these for her. These are mine in any case, Doesn't count. Chase him away. In the end, it said that Milarepa had to build 7 times this house that Marpa wanted to build for his son that was getting married soon. So free labor, basically, for Milarepa. And he had to build it 7 times because each time, halfway through or 1/3 through or almost completed, Marpa will say, no, I don't like this. Please, no, please, actually. Marpa said, I don't like this. I never said I wanted this. Again, by all appearances, he was lying, right? But he said, no, do it again. Do it again. Do it again. In contrast, we could say that, we really live in degenerate age. Now, we don't have teachers with the, by and large, not all cases, we don't have teachers with Marpa's guts. Marpa did not care if Milarepa was going to like him or not. Marpa did not care if he was going to be rated highly in the teacher's rating. Marpa did not care what the Buddhist magazines featured him or not. Marpa did not care, how many people is clicking like on his Facebook page. He had guts. It's like, I don't care. Marpa didn't even care what his wife thought of him. Yeah, I mean, of course, we think, oh, it's terrible, man. But he didn't care. Why? Because he cared about bodhicitta. So he had those guts, Hard to find, teachers like that. I mean, even someone like, Jongse Gyaltsen Rinpoche, now big star. And he says, even myself, he says, I'm not a very good teacher, he said, because I don't have the guts to just offend people. When bodhicitta vow says, you have to, because I like to be popular. I like to be liked. We're not even saying that teachers are, talking about egocentric teachers or anything like that, just in a very ordinary human way, everybody wants to be liked. So we don't have Marpa-like figures. If we do, Well, we probably don't know where they are because they're not winning the popularity contest. We also don't have students like Milarepa with the kind of devotion that he had. No matter what, no matter what, he knew that he would do whatever Marpa tells him. Why? We don't know. I don't think Milarepa himself knew, right? He only heard people talking about Marpa being great, but Marpa didn't do anything to try to show Milarepa that he was great. You know, in fact, first encounter was like, that was Marpa's response, like, what? Can't you see I'm busy? Because Marpa was working on his farm. Like, what do you want? You know? But Milarepa had devotion. This is the kind of devotion that says, you know, no matter what, you know, I'm here. No matter how difficult, I'm here. I'm not going away. Whether I feel good, I feel bad, I feel inspired, you know, I feel disappointed, I'm here. So that was the kind of devotion. Not emotional. Milarepa wasn't emotional. Sometimes we think devotion. The last couple of days I was talking to friends, you know, about devotion and emotion. It's like, it's not emotional. This kind of devotion is about strength. It's about not being thrown off course by whatever happens. Like I said, a year ago, or 2 years, more than a year ago, when His Holiness was here, I shared with you the words that His Holiness said to me. As long as the sky has not fallen down on your head and the ground has not given way, nothing is impossible. That's the devotion. Yeah, it's not the necessarily, I mean, other religious traditions have a more emotional kind of devotion, like bhakti, right? It's elevating the emotions to a higher level and, you know, loving the divine. And that's not necessarily the kind of devotion we're talking about here. Yeah, here it's a certain toughness and staying on course. Bodhicitta. How do we actualize bodhicitta? How do we experience bodhicitta? How do we generate bodhicitta? All of that. So Milarepa was relentless. So we are in a degenerate age, you know, in that sense, right? I mean, imagine Marpa turning up today and seeing, you know, all these publicity and posters and everything to lure people to Dharma teachings. He would say, this is hopeless. This is hopeless. You know? With all of our advancement in so many things, right? With all the intelligence. And then in the West, people are highly educated, highly intelligent. You know? And so, with so much technology and all that, has anyone reached the first bhumi? Tibetans had nothing but devotion. Complete devotion and staying on course, no matter. Teacher smile at you, good. Teacher don't smile at you, good. Teacher sees you, good. Teacher don't see you, even you're right in front, good. Never mind. Because you're not there, looking for, a father or even a friend. So because of that, Milarepa in one lifetime was able to purify all the negativities that was obstructing his ability to absorb the teachings. We now have, I would say, we now have way more access to teachings than Milarepa. All of us. We now have way easier access to all the teachings. Just get on Google. If you know how to search, you can find almost every single book that has been published and translated. Milarepa, to get even one sentence from Marpa wasn't easy. So it's not the case that we don't have enough teachings. We don't have enough access. We always, I see this a lot. We always think, oh, I don't have enough access. I don't have access to the teachings. I don't have access to the teacher. But we don't actually want access to teachers. We want access to our imaginary friend, our imaginary, boss. Whatever it is, that relationship that's lacking or not working out for you, you go to the Dharma teacher and you hope to get there. And then we say, I don't have enough access. Oh, that retreat is so expensive. Oh, that teaching is so this and that. Really? Look at what Milarepa had to give. And I would say he got maybe, in terms of like actual Dharma words from his teacher, 10% of what all of us in this room have already gotten. Really? 10%. So it's not literally how much Dharma that we get. It's our ability to absorb. And the only way to absorb this, again and again, especially in the Kagyu tradition, it's devotion. We say it's devotion. Otherwise, it's not possible. That means dedication. That means being dedicated to the goal that we are seeking. Otherwise, it's not possible. So Milarepa's whole life was about dedication. He spent about maybe 2 years with Marpa. And even that, on Marpa's terms. Milarepa never knew what's going to happen next. Completely on Marpa's terms. Maximum 2 years. After that, Marpa said, you have what you need to reach your goal. Now leave me. Now go into the mountains. Because that's where you need to practice. And every time when you feel completely discouraged, completely ready to give up, pray from the depths of your heart. Pray to me. Again, this was a guy with guts. Either you have guts or you're a charlatan. Lots of charlatans tell people to pray to them. But Marpa could care less what Milarepa thought. Is he a charlatan asking me in most difficult times to pray to him? Marpa said, you pray to me. I'm your guru. So Milarepa went off. And we see in his life, when he was in the darkest periods during his practice, when he was about to give up, about to kill himself, then he remembered and he prayed. And then Marpa appeared. By that point, Marpa already passed. So I would say it's not that Marpa, passed on and somewhere in some paradise going, oh, Milarepa's calling. And poof, in front of Milarepa. But it was again Milarepa's devotion that Marpa appeared, and Marpa said to him, remember what I taught you. Remember what I said. So the words of Marpa was powerful enough that Milarepa had visions of Marpa. And Milarepa, once he left Marpa, he never saw Marpa in life again. Never saw Marpa in person again. And he continued to dedicate his life until his own body dissolved. As devoted as he was to Marpa, he was completely devoted to his students, the welfare of his students. And so that again, he did not care about the 8 worldly concerns. People criticize him as a bad teacher, people praise him as a good teacher, doesn't matter. Bodhicitta. His Holiness Drigong Kyabgan, when he went into the 3-year retreat when he was younger, it happened not after having kind of suffered quite a bit. I mean, he was never really, as far as I know, as far as the public story is known, he was never like beaten or tortured by the communist government. But nonetheless, he was put to like these labor camps and hard labor. And so his body was weak. So when he went into the 3-year retreat, you have to do all these purification practices. You have to do the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of prostrations. And it said that at one point he was so weak physically that he collapsed a few times during doing these prostrations. And so his fellow retreatants was very worried because he's the head of the order, very worried. And they pleaded with the retreat master to make an exception for His Holiness. To say, he has gone through so much, right? His body is so weak, and he's sick right now. He's passed out. Nose started to bleed. So they wrote a note to the retreat master. Then it said that the retreat master called everyone in the retreat, including His Holiness. In the hierarchy of the order, of course, His Holiness was higher than anyone in that room, including the retreat master. But in the relationship of teacher and student, His Holiness was a student of, the retreat master. But even that, like the throne of His Holiness is always higher, even as a student. So it said that the retreat master, so everybody, students came in, made prostrations, and they sat where they normally sit. Then the retreat master himself got up, went in front of His Holiness's throne. His Holiness was sitting there. He made 3 prostrations. Not common, because during the retreat, he's the teacher, His Holiness is a student, but he did that. And he stood in front of His Holiness, and he looked at everybody else in the room, and he said to His Holiness, both you and I, at one point, took the bodhisattva vow, took the vow to actualize bodhicitta. So we took this vow, and now here we are. Your fellow retreatants have pleaded with me to make an exception for you in this requirement. And he said, if I were to do that, and if you were to take the exception, then both you and I have turned back on our bodhicitta vows. So do you think you can accept the exception? Because I don't think I can give the exception. Then, of course, he went on to say, on the ultimate level, you are Avalokiteshvara, and you don't need to do these prostrations. But on the conventional level, for the benefit of sentient beings, no matter what, finish these requirements. And he left the room. That's the kind of commitment. It's like you don't give up. So Milarepa's, training with his teacher and his training of his students are always told in the Tibetan tradition as the most kind of amazing examples of what devotion means. So if you read Milarepa's life story, you see what devotion really means. It's like no matter what the hardships, you stay on course to actualize bodhicitta. And you rely on your guru. So in these songs, you'll see that. He'll talk a lot, he'll sing a lot about that. That without that, it's not possible. And so here, it says in the notes in this text, I will read that. As a result of the dynamic energy of blazing bliss, wherein prana, meaning the wind energy, not physical wind, not energy of the wind like the windmills, subtle energy in the body, prana, and mind are united. One who fully realizes what appears and exists as the deities of the three chakras is Lord Mila. Bowing down to him and to the incomparable Drigumpa, I shall elucidate here the yoga of Milarepa. This is His Holiness, doing an homage to Milarepa, and incomparable Drigumpa is Chiden Sumgan, founder of Kagyu. To the top of page 2, and this is key in understanding what is or who is the Guru. So His Holiness quotes a teaching that was given to him many lifetimes back. The first Chesang, Gonjoratna. It said that the goddess Tashiserima is like one of those supernatural figures of the Tibetan landscape that was said to be foremost of Milarepa's non-human students. Milarepa's foremost human students was Gampopa and Rejompa. Gampopa the monk, Rejompa the yogi, wandering ascetic like Milarepa. Then in the non-human world was Tashiserima, this goddess with her 4 other sisters, a group of 5 of them. So Serengma, a few centuries later, gave teachings to the first Chesang, our current one is the 7th Chesan. And so it says, fortunate ones, what is revealed here is the most profound Guru sadhana, the heart blood of the Dakinis. And when great bliss turns into the Guru, receive from him the empowerments and accomplish all of the myriad activities until you witness them personally. When great bliss turns into the Guru. So what is the Guru? The Guru is the embodiment of the great bliss. Where does great bliss come from? What is great bliss? What does great bliss mean here? Great bliss is that which arises when we realize the inseparability of appearances and emptiness on the objective, in the objective sort of end of things. On the subjective end of things is the inseparability of the emptiness and the clarity of mind. Right? With regards to mind, realizing the inseparability of emptiness and clarity. Clarity is a poetic word for what?
Enlightenment.
More basic.
Emptiness?
No, that's the emptiness.
That's the clarity.
What's clarity? Inseparability of emptiness and clarity. What's clarity? As a quality of the mind. No. More basic. Awareness. Awareness itself. So the mind is not just empty, meaning that it's spacious. Or each moment of mind. We're not talking about mind as a thing. Each moment of mind has both the quality of being empty and has awareness. So the inseparability of awareness and emptiness, when realized, when experienced, that is the experience of great bliss. On the subjective pole of experience. On the objective pole of experience, the inseparability between emptiness and appearances. Or emptiness and appearances. All the sight, sound, smell, taste, touch that we perceive is inseparable from emptiness. And so that's great bliss. So the Guru is then the embodiment of that great bliss. So when you can perceive the Guru as that, then you receive from the Guru empowerment. And so in this Guru Yoga, at the end, or in all Guru Yogas, at the end, you receive the 4 empowerments from the Guru. And then some notes here about how to prepare the shrine and what you need to have. Then it says, ignite the fire of devotion as strong as the fire at the end of the aeon, and focus your mind completely on the 2 types of precious bodhicitta. So we started with that, the aspiration and the engagement bodhicitta. So we are on page 2 of the Guru Yoga text, somewhere in the middle. Then some instructions on what to prepare for the shrine. And then it says, if you don't have any of these things, these can be simply imagined. So you can be out on the parkway without lugging a whole suitcase of Vajrayana stuff. Milarepa himself had none of the stuff. But also remember, okay, maybe Milarepa now is the lion and we are the fox. But you as the fox, you have to figure out how much accessorizing you need and how little you need. After the 2 bodhicittas, then now the meditation to turn away from the distractions of samsara. It's the next section. So now, instead of everyone reading that, I want you to not read that. Don't read that. Instead, I'm going to read, you listen and contemplate. Rather than, do the reading version of chanting, which is how it would normally be done. So rather, just sit comfortably, close your eyes if you want to, and just listen. Listen to the instructions. It's even better if you listen to it and imagine, not me, but Milarepa saying this to you. Yes.
Could we wait a couple minutes while I go use the restroom?
Sure. Take your time. Don't rush.
I'm not gonna keep all day.
Well, I won't wait all day. Well, questions. Good. Questions or comments? Yes, Rich.
Is the Milarepa, is the Guru?
Thank you for coming.
Okay, thank you.
It's the distance.
Very happy to be here. Is the Guru Yoga of Milarepa, is that the primary Guru Yoga that's practiced in Kagyu?
No.
No. It's
No.
not.
So the question was, in case people out there didn't hear, is the Guru Yoga of Milarepa the main Guru Yoga practice in Kagyu? No, it's not. On a daily basis in our main monastery in India, every morning the whole assembly gathers to do the Jigten Sumgön Guru Yoga. Yeah, the founder of our lineage.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I would also say the main one for Karma Kagyu would be the Karma Pakshi or the 16 Karmapa Guru Yoga.
Yes.
Yeah. But Milarepa Guru Yoga, all the Kagyu lineage have their version.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. But it's not done so much as a daily. The one that's done daily is usually what's most directly connected to each of the Kagyu lineage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I see.
Identity. Now we'll have to wait for Jess. Oh, and Milarepa had to wait and wait and wait and wait. So this is what we're training to. We have to wait. Just because you want it. Again, gurus with guts. Just because you want it doesn't mean that, it's good for them to give it. Yes.
So just to follow up then, what was your thinking in prescribing this particular medicine for us, our Sangha here, the Milarepa Guru Yoga? Is there, each sadhana has a certain, has a certain power or effect to it. And so in this case, this particular sadhana, at this particular time, what was your thinking as far as presenting this teaching at this time?
So what's my thinking in introducing, in presenting the sadhana and this set of teachings of Milarepa at this time? I wouldn't, like to be able to say, I saw the dark times coming and we're all feeling like Milarepa resentment, anger, and guilt, you know. No, I don't have that kind of ability. But if something is at work, I also believe, you know, there might be something bigger than all of us, definitely bigger than me. When this was planned, you know, none of Tuesday was planned this way. It was planned differently, right? We all have our plans on what Tuesday elections is going to be, including me. I had my plans, you know, and I was sure, you know, my plans are going to work out. Milarepa too, you know, it was going to work out, you know, and then reality unfolded.
So this is where you're describing the particular importance of devotion, then,
Yes,
it seems.
right, exactly. You know, devotion. And when you're devoted to, and I believe that I've seen that many times, right? In my own life, in my own practice, and then in the context of, you know, starting this thing, this burden or this liberation, however you want to look at it, urban Dharma, it's devotion, you know. And then when you have devotion, no matter what, you keep moving, and things kind of open up in a very strange way that is always timely. That is always timely. But timely or not also depends not just me blabbering away, but you making the time and say, I'm turning up. You know? Otherwise, you know, there are no teachers and no teachings if there are no students. The interdependence of the three has to come together. We're not a God-based system, meaning single cause believers. Although we behave like we are single cause types of people, you know, like something kind of special, extraordinary, you know, miraculous happens. I don't know if you remember, there's some strange photo that was taken when Gajahn Rinpoche was here. And this object in front of him kind of turned into a 3D lotus. So of course you could get a, you know, photography expert to analyze to say, well, the light was coming this way and this was coming this way and then this happened. But then it's in the shape of a lotus, not in the shape of a cat. You know, and the lotus was directly related to what Rinpoche was talking about at that point, right? All of that. Then, of course, you know, our reaction to that is, wow, Rinpoche is so powerful, so great. You know, but when we showed it to Rinpoche, Rinpoche said, this is the interdependence between the devotion of the audience, my devotion to teaching you, and, you know, all the other conditions that came together. So we are united in this. He's not being humble. Of course he is humble too. But if you think it's just words of humility, you're missing, right, the key point of Buddha's teachings on interdependence. So interdependently arising, interdependently ceasing. So the interdependence of things gives rise to both positive and negative conditions. Right? The negative conditions that we perceive in the aftermath of Tuesday, for some of us, not for all of us, you know, even for Dharma practicing people, I think we're too narrow if we think, you know, that only our position makes sense from the Dharma perspective. It's complicated. I don't want to, you know, there's not the time to get into that, right? But just to say, you know, that what we perceive to be negative, it's an interdependence of causes and conditions. We didn't get here suddenly. what happened is the rug was pulled from under. What happened, for me at least, I know I'm not going to talk about it, but it's hard not to talk about it. More than anything, I think for me, I cannot speak for other people. It's, what? Impermanence? What do you mean? What? Unsure? What do you mean? That, I think, is causing me more stress than, who will be harmed, who will be hurt, as a result of this. And it's more that my plans did not pan out when I was so sure. I think many of us, even if this is not the main point, that we're suffering now, and some of you have maybe more bodhicitta than I do, but a big part of it is we never took Buddha's teachings on uncertainty, which is what impermanence means on a felt level. The word impermanence is kind of objectively describing what is, right? But as a subjective experience is uncertainty. And the Thai tradition translates it as uncertainty. Trungpa Rinpoche, in his brilliance, translates it as groundlessness. You think there is this secure ground that you could always stand on, when in reality it's groundless. So one famous quote from him is, the bad news is you suddenly discover that you're falling and you don't have a parachute. Right? When we discover that we are falling, in some moments, right, maybe exhilaration, that's when samsara is working out for you. So we're exhilarated. Ooh, right? I've never done skydiving, but I can imagine, right? Ooh, what, But then you ooh and look up and go, wait, what happened to the parachute? And now that's going on for us, many of us. Oh, shit. Right? Oh, bleep. Where the hell is the parachute? And panic. Right? So, from Burmese says, the bad news is you suddenly find that you're falling and dang, the parachute is not there. He says, but the good news is there is no ground. There is no ground as an objective fact. Impermanence. Impermanence means everything changes. Subjectively is living with uncertainty and relaxing into that uncertainty. That is really hard. That has been hard. Will continue to be hard. But that's what we have to get. If we don't get that, none of these other teachings is going to really mean anything. Whatever fancy techniques that you meditate on, do 6 yogas, 7 yogas, 9 yogas, whatever, pointless, useless. So now page 3. Now, as I suggested, so you just listen. If you can imagine, if it is helpful to you, to imagine Milarepa reminding us these words, that's even more powerful. Alas, now that this body, which is difficult to obtain and easy to destroy, has been found, practice the path to permanent happiness. The compounded and impermanent is like a dewdrop on the tip of a blade of grass. Endeavor in realizing the essential meaning. Since cause and effect is a natural condition of phenomena, abide in this unmistaken fact and cherish adopting what's virtuous and discarding what's harmful. To uproot the many faults of the three realms of existence, stir samsara from its very depths. Agitate samsara. Don't be misled by samsara. Stir it up, agitate it, so that we can see clearly. Without first having a guru, even the name Buddha does not exist. Therefore, we now meditate on the Guru Yoga of the great cotton-clad Venerable One. These are called mind reversals, to reverse the mind, to turn the mind away from the distractions of samsara. There's mind reversals also suggest that there is the mind, there's the innate nature of the mind that we have lost because of being misled or attracted to the glitter of samsara. So here it says, stir up samsara. Right? Now samsara is stirred up. It's not like, the mess just was produced. It's just under the surface. On Thursday, we had someone joining us that said, she's African American, and she said, this is nothing new to my community. This is nothing new to my community. I think, her community is less shocked by the rest of us who thinks samsara is fixed now. And until, Tuesday at about 10 p.m. Like, oh crap, it's samsara. So when it says, stir samsara, it means that. Muck, look at the muck. Because if you don't see that, then your mind is constantly looking for happiness in all the wrong places. The next part of this sadhana involves making an offering to all the local powers and entities that for whatever reason might not be comfortable, might not like that we're here talking about Milarepa. And we can learn from this, that even when you are doing what you think to be really good, there are other beings for whatever reasons, just find it really annoying. And they just disagree. So here it says, you take this, you take this offering, and please go. Interestingly, in this part too, so they say, first is the peaceful means, right, of, saying to them, we mean you no harm. We're working on the good of all. We mean you no harm, but we understand you don't like this. We understand that you're annoyed. You might be annoyed. So take this offering. Yeah. But interestingly, here it doesn't stop there. There's also a part in this section that says, okay, now for the rest of you, that's not going to be reasonable. If you don't leave, it says, your heads will be split into 100 pieces. Now, this is not literally splitting even, spirits' heads into 100 pieces. Yeah, this is saying, stay at your own risk. Because these teachings, these practices will cause your head to explode. So maybe instead of putting ads like, come and be inspired, we should put, our flyers will say, come at your own risk, It'll cause your head to explode. Yeah, it'll cause your head to explode. And that is very messy, especially the cleanup on aisle 4. And then after that, we say we visualize, a protective circle around us. And they say the greatest protective circle or chakra means circle, is bodhicitta. That's the only way to ultimately get rid of all our enemies. Turn them into Buddhas. Turn all of our enemies into Buddhas. Right? Many of you have heard my favorite thing of like the Buddhist equivalent. If within Buddhist cultures, the equivalent of telling someone to go to hell is, may you become Buddha. Right? The English expression is based on a particular theological understanding that when people go to hell, they'll never come back again. So they will never trouble you again. But in the Buddhist universe, telling someone to go to hell only means they're going to come back even more pissed off. And then you'll be in even bigger trouble. So the only way to get rid of that which you don't like is to work on helping them become Buddhists. So again, you need not really, I will tell you where, because this is about visualization. So it's easier if I just read it and you try to imagine. If you can imagine, if you cannot, just reflect on the meaning of this section of the practice. Instantaneously, I am Heruka, greenish blue with one face and two arms, embraced by the red lady who holds a knife and skull cup. This is the co-emergent primordial body, vividly present. Om Kandaro He Hong Hong Pe Om Swa Bhava Shuddha Sarva Dhamma Swa Bhava Shuddho Hang. Within emptiness arise wind, fire, and a hearth of skulls. Upon it is a pot containing elixir of Hong, Om, Kam, and Tum, and 5 meats of Bum, Lum, Mum, Bum, and Tum. Wind blows and ignites the fire. The ingredients become pure when they melt and boil. The cover is a moon disk with Hong, Ah, Om. Light rays emanate, summoning elixirs. Then the 3 letters and moon dissolve into light, transforming into an ocean of primordial wisdom. Om Ah Hong Ha Ho Hri. Om Ah Hong Ha Ho Hri. Om Ah Hong Ha Ho Hri. Padme, can you come and hold this? Yeah, and then turn around and look that way. And then when I tap you, then you can take it to the back door, just right outside the door. You know where to put it, and bring the plate back. Thank you. Yeah, just wait. Pem, pem. At the bottom of page 5, together we can recite this if you want. If you don't, then don't, no need. If you want, you can join us. Pem, pem, om, kaka, kahi, kahi, sarva yaksha, rakshaksha, Buddha, Preta, Pisacha, Ummada, Apasmara, Dhaka, Dakinya, Dhaya, Imam Baleng Krihantu, Samaya, Rakshantu, Mama Sarva Siddhim Prajantu, Yataivam Yateshtam Bunjata, Pibata Jikrata, Matikramata, Mama Sarva Karataya Satshuka Vishuddhaya Sahayaka Bhavantu Hong Hong Pe Pe Swaha Pem Pem Om Kaka Kahi Kahi Sarva Yaksha Rakshasha Buddha Preta Pisacha Ummada Apasmara Dhaka Dakinya Dhaya Imam Baling Krihantu Samaya Rakshantu Mama Sarva Siddhing Prajantu Yataivam Yateshtam Bunjata Pipata Jikrata Mati Kramata Mama Sarva Karataya Satshuka Vishuddhaya Sahayaka Pavantu Hong Hong Pe Pe Swaha Pem Pem Om Kaka Kahi Kahi Sarvayaksha Rakshaksha Buddha Preta Pisacha Umanda Apasmara Dhaka Dakinya Daya Imam Balingrihantu Samayam Rakshantu Mama Sarva Siddhim Prajantu Yathaivam Yatestam Punjata Vipata Chitkrata Mati Kramata Mama Sarva Karataya Sachuka Vishodhaya Sahayaka Bhavantu Hong Hong Pe Pe So. So the next part here is the sometimes called wrathful, sometimes called forceful removal of obstacles. And like I said, ultimately, external obstacles are summoned here by internal obstacles. So to whatever degree we have strong afflictive emotions, particularly the outward moving harmful afflictive emotions, whether it's desire, wanting to possess that which we don't have a right to possess, wanting to get rid, wanting to get rid of what we detest, not accepting what is, and then when what is presents itself and we hate it, we have resentment, all these things is what summons obstacles. And so here is the forceful pushing of obstacles, reversing these obstacles. So again, you can meditate here as I say the words for this removal. So really think about your internal, whatever internal obstacles you think and pray that might prevent you from successfully, from effectively absorbing these teachings. Really, that's the internal obstacles. May that be removed before we go further into these teachings. May they be removed, these obstacles. All those who advocate evil and thus have no permission to listen to or look at these rituals of the profound mantra must now leave. If you fail to follow this command, your heads will be split into 100 pieces with the blazing Vajra Katwanga. Om Sumbani Sumba Hong Hong Pe Om Grena Grena Hong Hong Pe Om Grena Then the top of page 7. This is just a very simple wheel of protection, which is bodhicitta. Om Banja Rasha Rasha Hong 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 Pe. So, of course, at the beginning, we already meditated on bodhicitta. Now it's just a reminder that the only way to ultimately meaningfully remove what we consider to be obstacles is through bodhicitta, devotion, dedication to fulfilling bodhicitta. So together, let's do the refuge and bodhicitta prayers on page 8. I and all other migratory beings without exception take refuge until the state of enlightenment in Venerable Shepa Dorje, the embodiment of the excellent three and the three roots. I and all other migratory beings without exception take refuge until the state of enlightenment in Venerable Shepa Dorje, the embodiment of the excellent three and the three roots. I and all other migratory beings without exception take refuge until the state of enlightenment in Venerable Shepa Dorje, the embodiment of the excellent three and the three roots. For the sake of mother sentient beings equal to the infinity of space, becoming liberated from the ocean of samsara, I vow to accomplish the supreme state of Shepa Dorje. For the sake of mother sentient beings equal to the infinity of space, becoming liberated from the ocean of samsara, I vow to accomplish the supreme state of Shepa Dorje. For the sake of mother sentient beings equal to the infinity of space, becoming liberated from the ocean of samsara, I vow to accomplish the supreme state of Shepa Dorje. Now let's gather this 7-branch prayer on page 9 and 10 and repeat that together one time. Homage to your mind in which I have divided faith as being essentially one with the innate self-aware Dharmakaya. I offer you the all-pervasive Lord of the Pure Lands, clouds of Samantabhadra's offerings, actual and imagined. All sins, downfalls, and non-virtues accumulated since beginningless time, I confess them all from my heart with profound guilt and remorse. I rejoice in all the righteous deeds of others and in their virtuous activities now and forever. May the sound of Dharma, the stainless elixir, resound in accordance with the dispositions of limitless sentient beings. On the throne of compassion, may the glorious Rupakaya that benefit others sit firmly cross-legged, never untying the Vajra knot. I dedicate the virtues accumulated in the 3 times and the innate virtue to the attainment of supreme enlightenment without exception. So these are the 7 branches, the 7 limbs. So the first limb is the limb of paying homage. The second limb is the limb or the part of making offerings. Paying homage with body, speech, and mind, making all the offerings. Then the third is to expose. The common word used to translate this is confession or repentance. But the more literal meaning is to expose. What to expose? We expose. We don't hide anymore from ourselves and from other people the negative activities, the patterns of behavior that lead us to suffering, this confusion. So all sins, downfalls, and non-virtues, I confess them. But more literally, it's I expose them. I don't hide them. Then the fourth limb is to rejoice in the good that beings are engaged in. Rejoice in all the virtue accumulated far and near by self and other. We rejoice in that. And then the fifth is the prayer, the request that all awakened beings continue to teach and to guide all beings everywhere, no matter where they are, especially in the midst where the confusion is strongest and thickest and most difficult. Do not have, pray that the awakened ones do not abandon them. Is the next one. Do not pass into nirvana. We said that. But really, it's like, these dark places is where the Dharma is needed most. Now, particularly, is when the Dharma is needed most. And what are we willing to do to make that happen, to ensure that happens? That's what we have to ask, right? Later, Milarepa says, prayers are useless if your actions don't match your prayers. We'll look at that. Then finally, dedicating to all beings, dedicating to the happiness of all beings. These are the 7 branches. Pardon me, could you take the incense outside? We are sufficiently blessed. Now we should bless people outside. Thank you. Yes, the next part for this sadhana is the self-generation. Here you appear in the form of Heruka, which is Chakasamara with Vajavarahi in union, and then in front of you, Milarepa appears. But that will come later. Now, the first song of the collection that I've selected for this weekend and also upcoming weekends. So now we're looking at this text. So now we'll look at this text called A Small Collection of Milarepa Songs. You look at the cover. These songs are extracted from several sources. I want to acknowledge these sources and to remind all of us that all of this takes resources in order to have what we have here. Not only having this physical space of urban Dharma takes resources, making the live cast available to people that are away, far away, takes resources. And then, text being translated takes also resources. Translators have to live. Come on in, don't worry. really, we have to move a little bit faster. Otherwise, people get intimidated. So don't be shy, Linda. The minute when people open the door and say welcome, even if it is loud, don't worry about it. I'm loud. So your welcome won't not drown me out. That's why we're here, not just for this, but for every person that steps in. The seeds are planted. If they accidentally hear even just one line, the seeds are planted. We believe that. That's why we're here. It's the bigger picture that we're talking about. So we also cannot just think about me, right? In fact, you are making it possible for the seeds to be more widely planted. Because I still have worldly thoughts, so that I can't just sit here in an empty room and just blabber away and hope somebody would walk in and accidentally have seeds planted. So you are here to feed my eight worldly concerns, but hopefully with our collective bodhicitta, it will bring benefit more than what's obvious, more than what we can see. So back to this. So these translations, 3 of these songs come from a group that translated them, called Milarepa Translation Committee. And then 2 of these songs can be found in this website, ktgrinpoche.org, which is this great Kagyu Kimbo Sutrin Kimso, a great Kimbo, very old now. And it's on his website. So 2 songs come from there. And then the other 2 songs is based on a very famous collection published in English called The 100,000 Songs of Milarepa in 2 volumes. Don't be disappointed, and also don't worry. It's not literally 100,000 songs. It means many. So the first song I would like to look at is the song called 6 Illusions as Metaphors. Metaphors of impermanence. 6 illusions as metaphors of impermanence. Look there at all the objects appearing outside, fleeting visions like last night's dream. When you recall they are dreamlike, these delusions make your mind uneasy. Have you cut delusion at the root, Rechompa? When I reflect on this, sublime Dharma comes to mind. When looking inward at your body, transitory like a city of Gandharvas, its rising and falling make your mind uneasy. Have you cut through birth and death, Rechompa? When I reflect on this, sublime Dharma comes to mind. When looking inward at the perceiving mind, fugitive like a bird in the crest of a tree, so restless it makes your mind uneasy. Have you taken a hold of mind's secure ground, Rechompa? When I reflect on this, sublime Dharma comes to mind. When looking inward at the breath moving inside, it's impermanent like mist in the air. The fading and passing of mist makes your mind uneasy. Have you seen movement vanish on its own, Rechompa? When I reflect on this, sublime Dharma comes to mind. When looking at these friends assembled here, they are transient like crowds at a fair. Once gathered, they are sure to part, making your mind uneasy. Have you set relations on a higher level, Rechungpa? When I reflect on this, sublime Dharma comes to mind. When looking at the wealth collected here, evanescent like honey of the bees, someone else enjoying your things makes your mind uneasy. Have you opened the treasure of mind itself, Rechungpa? When I reflect on this, sublime Dharma comes to mind. So the 6 metaphors here: dream, city of Gandharvas, dream, city of Gandharvas, bird, mist, crowds, and bees. These are the 6. Rechungpa, as I mentioned earlier, is one of the 2 most important disciples of Milarepa. In fact, it said that there were 4 pillars in a vision, in a dream that Milarepa had. He saw 4 visions, 4 pillars, and on top of the pillars were these 4 animals, almost like Harry Potter. So these 4 houses, and each one of them is one of his 4 chief disciples, and 2 of them was Rechungpa, I believe, and Gampopa. So you could say that Gampopa was his most important monastic successor, and Rechungpa was the most important non-monastic successor. So that's, I said, I prefer the word non-monastic than lay, because Rechungpa certainly wasn't playing a supporting role or a less important role. He was, in fact, if we look at available biographies of Milarepa, we see that Rechungpa was a lot closer to him in terms of these songs. Many songs were addressed to Rechungpa. Gampopa came later in Milarepa's life and also was with Milarepa for a shorter period. But today, almost all the Kagyu lineages trace themselves back to Gampopa, as I said. That's why we say Dakpo, which is where Gampopa comes from, Dakpo Kagyu. Rechungpa's lineage has been absorbed into the other Kagyus. And the reason why is because the non-monastic lineages were harder to maintain and to preserve. I know we all, not all, but I think most of us kind of have a distrust of institutions. So we like the non-institution spirituality, right? We fear organized religion. I said, be careful with that fear. That fear might push you to something worse, disorganized religion. But yeah, for good reason, we are suspicious, of organized religion or institutions. But also, as a fact, it was the institution, more institution-based, not institutionalized. Well, it could mean that too, but institutionalized has 2 meanings, right? but it's the structure that these institutions provided that today we still have, Milarepa remembered and the songs preserved. If it was left to Rechongpa, I think we might not have these today, because by nature they were not interested in building, even building libraries to keep books, and they rely very little on books even. It's all oral text. Right? They sing, they move on. They sing, they move on. And then no one, kind of collecting all the things that have been sung and then, publishing them. Taking it to the publishers, getting wood blocks carved, right? And printed. All of that is done by institutions, and the resources that people provide institutions to keep these going. So if we don't invest in that, we're not going to get this. So, but Rechongpa was clearly kind of, even I would say of the two, I know a lot of Kagyupas probably think, I'm saying something, scandalous. But between Gampopa and Rechongpa, I think we have more evidence that Rechongpa was probably the closest to Gampopa. I mean, to Milarepa, because they have the same lifestyle, the same way of living. And Rechongpa, in fact, even went to India to seek teachings. It said that Milarepa himself wanted to go. He attempted a journey, but he didn't continue it. He turned around and came back. So there were a number of teachings and practices that Marpa did not bring back from India. One of them, they say, is a technique of practicing preventing untimely deaths through the practice of Amitayus, the longevity practice of Amitayus. And so it said that Milarepa sent Rechongpa to India, in particular, to bring back that teaching, and other things, of course. But it's because Milarepa could tell that Rechongpa was that a strong obstacle to Rechongpa's continued, existence as Rechongpa was about to manifest in the near future. So then Milarepa told Rechongpa, I heard from my teacher that there is this one practice, but he never received. And so it would be good. I wanted to go, but I can't go now. I'm getting old. It would be good if you go. So Rechongpa made the difficult journey into India, or maybe into Nepal. I think hard to tell. And then he came back with that particular transmission. And then Milarepa said, now you should offer that to me. And so this is in one very unique instance where in the lineage prayer to this practice, the student comes before the teacher. Because in this one practice, it's Rechongpa who gave it to Milarepa instead of Milarepa to Rechongpa. So that's who Rechongpa is here, that he's talking, he's singing to Rechongpa. So he says, look there at all the objects appearing outside. So sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch are these appearances. So it's a technical term, appearances. By calling external physical phenomena or phenomena of the senses, by referring to the objects of the senses as appearances, as appearing outside, it's reminding us already that without needing to get into kind of metaphysical discussions or physics discussion of whether these objects of the senses truly exist out there or not, it's enough here to recognize that whatever it is that we believe to or assume to exist outside, they exist only in the way that they appear to exist to us. Right? So there might be a pew over there or not. And one could get into metaphysical and then physics and quantum physics, right? Debates and discussion and analysis as to whether that pew is truly out there or not. And of course, certain things in quantum physics seems to suggest that it's not existing there in the way that we suppose it exists out there. So all we can really say is that whatever sensory objects that I experience, I only experience the way in which they appear to me. Right? And hence I can call that a pew. And you also can call that a pew. For someone who has never seen a pew before, or even a chair before, in a culture where there are no chairs, that would not appear as a sitting thing, as a thing to sit on. That might look like a thing to lay down on for very slim people. That might look like a place to kneel before and put your hands on and pray to the golden calf. Right? Again, depending on, right, their own karmic circumstance, the pew appears differently. So here, Milarepa says, look there at all the objects appearing outside. So they appear to exist outside. In the next verse later, or two verses down, he will point to the mind. But before he does that, he just says, let's just look at all the things that appear outside. If you really look at them, try to see how they are fleeting visions. They're fleeting. One day you feel a certain way towards the pew, another day you feel a certain other way. Then if something strong happens there, then it changes again, right? And even from moment to moment, right? Now I'm looking away from it. My experience of that pew now is in the abstract, right? Because my eyes are not actually looking at it, but I have a mental picture of it. But my mental picture is also an object of the senses, in this case, the intellect. So it's an idea, it's a memory of the pew that I have now. And then with that comes many other memories. All of these, he says, they are fleeting visions. And they're like last night's dream. He says, when you recall that they are dreamlike, and these delusions make your mind uneasy. He's describing Rechongpa. He's describing us. When we finally, catch a glimpse, or it's being pushed into seeing. What we were so sure about, what we were so certain about, what we take for granted to be, in fact, that's all just delusional. The thing about delusions is that they are not always inconvenient. Often, that's the problem, that they are convenient. It's convenient to believe that we live in a world without racism, without sexism. It's convenient to believe that. But those are false appearances. So these delusions are particularly pernicious because they are often very convenient. They are often very much in service of confusion. But we have become so comfortable with confusion. Now, if we can become so comfortable with confusion until to the point of confusion being native and natural, then maybe it's okay. Then maybe it's okay. But the problem with confusion is no matter how good you get at it, it's not going to feel native. It's not going to feel natural. That's the problem with confusion. If we could naturalize confusion, then it's not so bad. There's a story that a Tibetan philosopher of the 20th century, Asheville, he tells a story about a kingdom where one day some mysterious wise man comes to the king and warns the king and say, in about a week or in about a month, it will rain for like a week. And during that time, all that water that comes down, if anyone drinks that water, they will go insane. So when the king heard this, he summoned his whole kingdom to bring out all these big tubs and whatever utensils you have to collect rain between now and the beginning of the crazy rain. So they collected as much as they can. Then crazy rain came. And then some people didn't get the memo, So they drank that water. So they lost their mind. But then that crazy rain continued. No good rain came. So then more people, no choice, have to drink the water. Because if you don't drink, you die. It's better to be crazy than die. The story goes that eventually only the king had enough water saved so that, and he had enough saved for the rest of his life. But by that point, everybody have lost their mind. He felt okay for only a short time. After that, he decided to also drink the crazy water. Because then everyone is crazy, then that's the new norm. And so the story wasn't told, to say this is what we should do. The story is sort of saying that if it is possible, to normalize confusion, then confusion might not be such a big problem. But the problem is that confusion cannot be normalized. Suffering cannot be normalized, not as an imperative, but as simply the way things are. That suffering is not innate. Confusion is not innate. What's innate is this emptiness and clarity. And so we don't want to see, how uncertain things are. So we go about living with these kind of false security that everything is fine. So as they say, security is just a sense of security. A sense. So it's a sensation. I mean, have you really paid attention to that expression? Especially the commercial, the ads on TV or radio that is trying to sell us products related to being safe and safety. Interestingly, they all say, like alarm system and this and that, and it will give you a sense of security. They know enough not to promise it will give you security because they can't secure you. So they're actually telling more truth than we are actually listening to. Invest with us with a sense of security. Well, there they already told you, we could lose all your money overnight. But they only promise you a sense of security. So we've been promised a sense of security, but we don't listen. We think the sense of security and security are the same. So we sign up for security when all they can offer is a sense of security. And if you try to sue them, they say, well, we already say we only offer a sense of security. If you lose that sense, it's not our fault. You lost that sense. Yeah. What can we do if you lost that sense of security? We freely offer a sense of security. That's all security or certainty offers, a sense. And so when we realize that, he says, when you really come face to face with how impossible it is to be secure, he says, it makes your heart uneasy. That's what we've been feeling, many of us, the last few days. Extremely uneasy. Because we have lost what? Our sense of security. And the most vulnerable in our society will tell you, this is not new to us. This is not new to us. To be able to offer a sense of security is good in the short term, but it's also that which keeps the system going. Now, applied to politics and bigger picture, it's complicated. It's not as simple as therefore throw away all sense of security at no matter what cost to have change. It's easier when we're in positions and situations of relative privilege to do that. But the consequences for those who cannot afford it might be greater. So then we have to watch our actions. But here again, not here to teach activism or politics, but just on the level of the Dharma, as transforming our own self, so that the self can be more effective in serving others. It says, so when we finally see how all of this can go away like a dream, So it says dreamlike. Then of course, we become really uneasy. And so he asked Rechungpa, and if you don't like the uneasiness, then what have you done to cut delusion at the root? Objectively, that delusion at the root, on the objective end of this, is not understanding that there's a basic discrepancy between the way things appear to us and the way they truly are. So, technical Buddhist terms, the mode of appearance and the mode of abiding. More of you need to know this vocabulary, okay? Otherwise, I can't do all of this all the time. Some of you have to start sitting here. So the mode of abiding and the mode of appearance. So that's on the objective end. On the subjective end, of when we experience something, then the delusion is the delusion of I as a independently self-existing entity, instead of understanding interdependence and subject to causes and conditions. So a rigid, a solid view of self, which is impossible to maintain. Again, only possible to have a sense of security that I am. But that sense of security will keep breaking apart, will keep falling apart. And then the way we make this continue to work is we keep gluing it back together. And then it gets smashed again. And then we glue it back together. Because somebody says, now, this is elephant glue. Elephant glue. Oh, strong like elephant. Oh, put that. Now, this is super glue. Now, even fancier. Okay? We use gold to solder it back together. So always, we've tried to find more powerful glue, more fancy glue to try to glue back together that which is not possible to glue back together. But we still think I. But it's such a burden to have to carry around and maintain this I, when on so many levels, it's a continuously shifting and moving entity. It's a whole bunch of processes going on in which we throw the convenient label of I. And then following that, other labels. American, female, this, that, more labels. Out of convenience, right? We use the labels. But then we begin to mistake the labels, which seems pretty cohesive, which seems pretty hanging all together. But the label that the thing that we throw the label on is a continuously shifting bunch of processes, which in traditional Buddhist vocabulary we call skandhas, heaps. I think if you translate it to terms that maybe even non-Buddhists can understand, we say That which we put a label on and call I is just a bunch of processes going on. Seeing that nature is this thing called cutting the delusion at the root. Yes?
Because you put a label on something, you're separating it from yourself. You're not seeing it as a thing.
Here, actually, it doesn't even say that there is a self.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying that if you label a drum, if you label this, you're not seeing the true essence. You're too busy chopping it up in pieces instead of looking at the whole picture.
The teaching here is actually saying even the essence, there is no essence to be seen. The essence that is seen is that there is no essence. Yeah, so it's not so much, it is, of course, on a more, surface level, sort of, I know what you're pointing to. It's true on that level that, often we put a label on someone, but we don't see them as truly who they are. So there's that level of seeing, right? To see beyond labels. Good, of course. But here Milarepa is talking about even a deeper seeing. That when you look and look and look, you cannot find anything. That's when delusion is absolutely cut. Now, when I look, I label. Oh, so beautiful. Oh, this person needs some plastic surgery help. And so then, no, learn to look so that it's not that you're looking at, and you see this person for who they are. That's the conventional deeper way of looking. The Buddhist deeper way of looking cuts even deeper, that causes your head to explode, which is you look and you look and you look. That not seeing, Naropa Tilopa, many of their short, pithy teachings say, the not seeing is what we see. They say, look at your mind again and again. The not seeing of that mind is the highest seeing. But here it's not saying, don't look at the mind, which is right now our situation. Don't look at the mind, don't see the mind. That's not being enlightened. The Dharma way is keep looking at the mind, keep looking at the mind, keep looking at the mind, and look deeper and deeper and deeper. There is no mind to be seen. And yet you cannot say there's no mind. But it cannot be found. And that unfindability is what frees us from bondage. The non-findability, the not seeing. Vocabulary is different in Madhyamaka studies. The unfindability in more kind of songs, Mahamudra, that style is not seeing. Not seeing. Which is different from missing, or don't see, or being blind to. And then he says, when I reflect on this, then the sublime Dharma comes to mind. So he's also saying, if you can kind of see things from Milarepa's perspective, then when he sees the dreamlike quality, right, of things, when he experiences the dreamlike quality of things, he doesn't freak out. It doesn't become, defeated. He doesn't become angry. He doesn't become. He doesn't lash out. Instead, when he sees how, all the objects appearing outside is dreamlike, he says, my mind turns to the sublime Dharma. And he's at ease. In contrast, here Rechompa represents us. Us as in those of us who are on the path. Because there are people who are not on the path, they don't even see. They don't even see, right? That all the objects appearing outside is like last night's dream. They think it's real. But for practitioners, represented here by Rechompa, he says, so in a way, it's saying it's okay if you feel uneasy because you're now actually starting to see better. But then also continue on the path so that we can be like Milarepa, so that when we see the dreamlike quality of our experiences, our mind turns to the sublime Dharma. Then we can be at ease. So we'll take a break here and resume at 2 o'clock. Thank you.
Okay, then we come back.
Two.